and welcome to Full Focus, where law and news intersect. I am Crystal Parham. As we all know, Trump won the election, and now we are bracing for immigration reform like we have never seen before, and it's making a lot of people nervous, including some young children who are being bullied in school. Today I have on the phone with me Carla Prosper. She is an immigration attorney, and we're going to talk about what we can expect and what Trump can actually do. Hello, Carla. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you for having me.
So he won.
Yes, he won.
What does that mean for immigration law? Is it going to be turned upside down?
Well, right now we're in a stage where we're just waiting to see what the Trump administration is going to do with our current immigration system. As president, he does have access to executive actions, and he has the ability to dismantle some of the previous administration's executive actions. But for other acts, he does need the Congress to go along with him. And as we know, the Congress is now a majority Republican, so it doesn't seem like it's impossible for him to do what he needs to do or wants to do.
So what are some things he could do in regards to immigration as an executive action? Are any of the things he's proposing, can he do them as an executive action without the approval of Congress? Do you know?
Well, regarding executive actions, as easy as they were signed in by one president, they could be taken away. So, for example, a lot of students, a lot of young people are nervous about the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program, which was an executive order by Obama, which gave protection to young adults. And yes, Trump can, on the first day of his presidency, sign off that he could terminate the program. And people are very nervous about that. But there's also other programs such as TPS, Temporary Protected Status, which is basically an executive order by the president as well. That's something that he can also terminate. But anything else that is a statute, anything that needs Congress, he cannot do alone. So we have to be very, there's a lot of rhetoric, anti-immigration rhetoric, but we do have to look at the Constitution and see what he, as the president, has authority to do. And he is limited by the checks and balances of the Constitution.
How many people potentially could DACA, for instance, or the TPS, or how many people are we talking about that this could affect?
Well, approximately, we have to go to the USCIS's website, which is the primary source of how many applications have been processed. But approximately there's 700,000 young people who profited from DACA. Now, TPS, Temporary Protected Status, is a little more difficult to give a number because it's country specific. For example, Hondurans have had TPS for years after Hurricane Mitch, which occurred in 1998. Haitians have had it recently after the earthquake in 2010. So there's different nationalities that benefited from temporary protected status, some Syrians, some Nepalese people. During the Ebola crisis, I believe there were 3 African countries that were granted TPS. So there is a significant amount of people who could be affected by the withdrawal of those programs.
What about, he has his famous saying, build the wall, deport everybody. Is that really feasible? Let's forget about the wall. Let's forget the wall, because I think he's actually walked back from this in the last news article that I read about it. But what about deporting all these people that are here? Many of them are here working and they're paying taxes, right?
That's correct. I mean, the system as it is backlogged. I've been in court where the next hearing date is set for 2019.
Really?
Yes. And
from now?
From now. And you don't even know a calendar to put your next hearing date in. You don't even have a calendar for that. So the system as it is very, very charged. So, and you can't just deport someone without a hearing. Everyone has a right to a hearing.
Even if you're not a citizen, right? Even if you're not a citizen.
Even if you're not a citizen, you have the right to go before a judge and defend your right to be in the United States. There are conventions that the U.S. is signatory to. There's a UN Convention Against Torture, which has provisions for providing asylum and a safe place for people who fear return to their country. So this isn't something he can single-handedly just put people on a boat or a plane and deport. He has to go through the process.
And so the process of deportation, once you're in, if they do put you in into custody, that's an expensive process for the government, right?
It is a costly process. There's a hearing date. If the individual is detained, they have to be detained in immigration. I don't know if this has changed with the recent, with federal law now moving away from private facilities, but most immigration detainees are held in a private jail cell, and this is very costly to taxpayers and to the system.
And what's the process? So do you get to appeal? Like if they decide they're going to deport you, do you have an appellate process as well, which is also a burden on the taxpayer?
Of course. So if you're denied relief by an immigration judge, you can appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is under the Department of Justice. And if that is not favorable, if your appeal is dismissed, then and you've exhausted your remedies through that agency, you can go to federal court, which is also costly. So there is a process to appeal, and some immigrants are very tied to the United States, and they will fight until they reach, the highest court possible.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think there's this divide with immigration? Immigration turned out to be a very important issue in this election, and you're a practicing immigration attorney for several years. Why do you think this is such a hot-button issue for this year's election?
Immigration is a hot-button issue because I think people are very angry. There's a lot of misplaced anger. There's a lot of misunderstanding. People are fearful of terrorism. People are fearful of losing their jobs. And the easy way out is to point to immigrants and to really highlight who's coming into the country, who's quote unquote taking American jobs from U.S. citizens, and not address really the global and financial crisis that the U.S. has been going through, from the top levels, not necessarily from immigration levels. So I think it's a scapegoat. It's an easy way to think you can help the financial crisis or solution, and it's also a way to quote unquote deal with the terrorist fear, people's fear of terrorism. So I think that's why immigration will always be a hot button issue in the United States. Very polarizing.
Speaking of terrorism, he's proposing this Muslim internment camps or Muslim registry. He's saying that that's potentially a legal thing to do. What's your take on that?
My take is that it's completely illegal. He will be challenged under the First Amendment. He will be challenged for due process, on due process grounds. And I think that this is another thing where he was inciting. I don't want to say without thinking, because we shouldn't underestimate his strategy when he was on the campaign. But this is another way that he riled people up by lumping Muslims together and not dealing with the real issue. So, unfortunately, the United States has a very, very dark past with this kind of action. And, one of his supporters referred to the Japanese internment situation and, as a positive effect. But no, this is something that can't and should not be done under our Constitution.
I mean, what's interesting is when you mention that people are afraid of their jobs, I mean, the reality is a lot of these illegal immigrants that are here are doing jobs that other people may not want. Or, you're living in Montana, you're not going to come to New York City and get the job that this guy has in New York City. So it just doesn't really make much sense. Exactly.
I think that people are assuming, the jobs that are lost, the manufacturing jobs that people used to provide for their families and generations are gone. They've left the United States, and they haven't gone to the immigrants.
Yeah.
And people are just, it's a lot of misplaced anger and misinformation, unfortunately.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been such a great conversation, and I know we're going to have a lot more to talk about after the inauguration in January. I'm just bracing myself for what's going to be coming down the pike, and I'm sure you will too. If people want to reach out to you, if they have any immigration questions, how can they reach you?
Well, there's two ways to reach me. You could reach me by email at immigrationlawyer91@gmail.com, or you could always call it 973-339-9003, which is my office phone number.
Well, thank you so much, Carla, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you for having me, and stay vigilant, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And that wraps up this edition of Full Focus. And as Attorney Prosper said, stay vigilant.